All right, well, happy April. Today's April 1st, and I know it's been a few weeks since I did any updates on this. I just touched base on that real quick. My wife and I, we had a beautiful daughter. Her name's Daphne. She was born March 12th. Obviously spent some time in the hospital taking care of her. Everything's going pretty well at this point. Hit up my personal page if you want to know more, because there's definitely more to that story. But anyways, back to the electric car, so the electric GTM that I'm building. So lots of stuff has happened. So just kind of some of the parts and stuff that have shown up here for it. We'll go over that here in a second, but just a real quick update. So in the garage, you'll see, there used to be my orange IS300 was up on this lift. It's gone. Got pretty much everything parted out. A few additional parts, but nothing crazy. I donated the shell to charity. I'm sure they got $50 or something like that out of it, scrap metal. This car here is actually a friend's car. It's a Turbo IS300 also. He brought it to me. I'm installing an AM Infinity, which is a standalone computer system for it, and a few additional things. Something else you'll notice, there is no more Viper in the garage. So got that guy sold. It went out today. I will post a link to the video for that in the description below also. Guy in Texas, he's got a blue and white GTS. He wanted basically the inverse car, so we bought a white and blue RT10. Anyways, shipper picked it up today and it is on its way. So a lot more space. Still got kind of a little bit of a mess in here. I've been doing a lot of work trying to get the car ready to go, make sure everything was clean and proper. Just a bunch of stuff going on obviously with the new baby as well. But anyways, so here we are. And the update for the car. So I've got a lot of stuff's happened. So we'll just start with what's right here on the desk. So we've got the controller. So this is, they call it the T1C, made by EV Controls. It's a 7-inch touchscreen display. The controller basically talks to the Tesla motor itself and controls it through Tesla's own proprietary software. I'm not completely sure exactly how all of that goes together and works, but I know that the actual motor controller is still built in, or the inverter controller is still built into the Tesla motor. This just tells it what to do essentially. Pretty neat setup. I'm not no offense to the company at all, but I'm not a fan of the way the shroud or the casing looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably 3D print something, a new design that'll go better on the dash where I plan to use it. I won't do that until closer to time. Next up, we've got this guy right here. So this is a used piece out of as you can see here, 2013 Chevy Volt. This is a DC to DC converter. Basically what this guy does is it takes your high voltage, 360 plus volts out of the electric batteries for the car and converts it down to somewhere between 12.6 and 13.5 volts optimally. This guy here, so it takes your high voltage in and gives out your standard car voltage. Here it's a 135 amp unit, at least that's what I read and understand. With that should be plenty to provide all the accessories you need. One of the nice things about this one is it is air cooled instead of liquid cooled like some are. What I do know about that though is, for instance, my Lexus, the GS450 hybrid, the battery was air cooled, but it also took cool air from the interior of the cabin. So I'm gonna have to work out something with that. Same thing, I may end up 3D printing some ductwork, fan, something along those lines to make sure this thing doesn't get hot. These they're not completely a plug-and-play unit. They do require a CAN controller to actually turn them on. So if you give this thing power, it'll turn on, but it won't actually start outputting amperage until it sees like basically a ready signal from the CAN bus. The controller here won't do that for me, so I've got a plan, a couple different options I'm working on. One is probably most likely is an Arduino module to basically pull the CAN and send data as well. May end up using that for some displays as well. Let's see here. Next thing of interest we've got basically these guys here, the axles that came with the Tesla drive unit. Basically what, it's a standard CV axle, inboard and outboard. The inboard obviously is going to plug right into the Tesla drive unit. The outboard would go into the normal Tesla knuckle. Since I'm going to be using Corvette knuckles, hub bearings, that sort of thing, what the plan is to take the outboard shafts, get a custom intermediate shaft or drive shaft between, axle shaft between, and that should be it. So I will need to wait till the motor's in the car, get some measurements, and go from there. Oh, anyways, I got those from the same company who I bought the Tesla drive unit from. Pretty straightforward, $300 for the pair, nothing crazy. All right, so next, moving on. Got the rocket is hanging out, wanting to play. So the Tesla drive unit, I haven't even got it off the pallet yet. There's not much I can really do with it until the car gets here, so it may end up being just sitting here until the chassis shows up. But what we've got is the way I read this is it's the Sport, and Sport there, and it's the P, so it's the performance model. I'm pretty sure, based on this sticker, that it's a reman unit also. A lot of these P85 drive units don't like the high voltage. It's not good. But a lot of these P85s, they ended up having motor noises that were replaced under warranty. So this car this came out of supposedly had 66,000 on it. Pretty good chance that it was replaced under warranty, so that's a good thing in my opinion. Hopefully everything works out with that. The axles, they're gonna go right in the side here. Got the, obviously the high voltage, high amperage cable. Evidently this motor can, draw up to like 1,000 amps or so. Got they call it rocket, by the way. They call it an encoder, but basically it's just a speed sensor. Got the coolant, either input or output there. So this motor basically is two halves. One half is the motor, one half is the controller and basically the generator for the regen portion. So the motor's on this side, regen and inverter are on this side. Also on this side, got the 23 pin Molex connector down there. That's where the wiring for basically everything plugs into. The Tesla drive pedal, so the gas pedal for lack of a better term, that plugs directly into the motor here, so does the brake switch. Both of those units I've found just used ones on eBay. We've got the coolant outlet there, I believe. Mounts should be pretty straightforward, just a forward and a aft roll mount, and then a side, just like stability. The way this thing will mount in the car is this will be the forward part of the car. So the differential here is in front, and the motors are behind that axles. Moving on over here, so it's a little haphazard right this second, just kind of got these in, drove to LA. Obviously I'm in Phoenix, but drove to LA to pick these up. Both are out of 2017 Chevy Volts, so they're like the 18 kilowatt hour battery packs. A buddy of mine, Stan, he came over. We did some work on the Viper, but we also decided to tear one of these apart. So I'm probably going to do a video on actually disassembling one, but wanted to show what it kind of looks like, what the guts are. So we've got 3 packs, or 3 units, I guess we'll call them. Each has a different voltage, but they all run in serial, or series, I'm sorry, to get the 360 volts. Obviously they're made up of smaller packs, again all in series. A couple things to note real quick. So they're all coolant, all cooled. So we're going to keep with that in the new, in the new setup. The plugs on top here are for the battery management system, so it basically checks the voltage of each individual cell. And something to be of note is that you can see they're riveted right to these kind of copper plates. So those copper plates are actually hot. They're charged, so you don't want to drop anything metal or basically touch anything that would cause a short. So all of that stuff came out of this top kind of T-shaped one. The bottom one is the other Chevy Volt module. I'll be taking it apart again and hopefully doing some sort of video on disassembly. This T portion here, this is basically the lower part of the module. The batteries all bolt down to this guy. So I plan on repurposing this, trimming it to what I need so that I can basically bolt a portion of this into the chassis, and then it will maintain like the OEM retainer and hardware. A couple other little bits. So this is the front piece of the T. You can see how it looks there when it's still assembled. Don't believe I'll be using this at all. I don't see any reason for it. It does have the battery heater built into it, so I may rob that as like basically to warm up the batteries. And aside from that, just some plugs. Those plugs, so lots of connections there, and there's probably a CAN unit controller in here of some sorts, but they all go to the battery management system. So it's this network of wires. All of these plugs plug right into the top of the battery itself and talk to this box. So this box normally set right here on top, and basically all it does is monitor and balance the voltage between all the cells. It's one of those things that's very important on the lithium-ion batteries to keep them balanced for longevity, performance, that sort of thing. So you can see lots of wiring there. I'm not sure how much of it I'll be able to reuse, but I do plan on reusing the battery management system because the aftermarket ones are quite expensive. Same thing with that. It does require CAN communication in order to function. So same thing with the Arduino. I plan on using that just to monitor that sort of thing. So I think that's what I've got in the way of parts so far. Oh, one additional. We got the wiring harness. So this is like the rear subframe harness out of a Tesla. You can see that's the 23 pin connector that'll go in the side of the motor there. And somewhere on here, there it is the encoder connector. That goes to this side. I haven't looked at this harness a whole lot or very closely yet, but evidently it's shielded because of the high voltage that the motor uses to run off of. I think that's what I've got so far. A couple other things I wanted to kind of go over real quick is wiring on this. So I'm going to set this guy up and kind of see I'll do my best to draw here for you guys. Let's do this. I'm still learning all the ins and outs of this stuff. All right, here we go. So basically the important thing here is we've got our Tesla motor. So Tesla drive unit. So this thing can take up to about 1,000 amps, and it's looking for 350 plus volts, DC, obviously. The batteries, so there's 2 Chevy volt batteries. So I'm going to draw these in like their little T shape. It's almost obscene, and I apologize. So each of these is 360 volts and is capable of putting out a little over 500 amps each. So one of the reasons that I did the Chevy volt batteries over the Tesla, one is cost. These guys are about half the price of what a Tesla battery would cost. They're not as much power though, energy-wise, like storage, 18 kilowatt hours each versus the Tesla, which would be more like 85 kilowatt hours. So anyways, so we've got 2 packs. Obviously we're not going to use these in series. Series would be over 720 volts, which is more than the Tesla drive unit needs. We need these in parallel so that we can supply all of the amperage to the Tesla drive unit at the 350 plus volts. So batteries, drive unit, pretty straightforward. There are in electric cars these things, they call them contactors. They're basically heavy duty relays. They basically, the way this is going to work, I'm going to, I know this is not the right color technically, but blue here is going to be negative. So we got blue and blue to the negative contactor, and we're going to do red and red to the positive contactor, and then both of those are going to go to the drive unit. Now, just giving power to the drive unit doesn't turn it on. It's smarter than that, essentially. We still have to control the drive unit. So to do that, we use the EV controls box T1C. So that guy, basically, it'll switch both of these with just a simple, just like a normal relay would. But then the rest of it, it's got logic controls that go to the Tesla drive unit. Also, what goes to the Tesla drive unit is we've got the, this is a terrible drawing, gas pedal. Here, the throttle, I guess we'll call it a throttle. Okay, and then the brake. So both of those go there, brake switch, throttle. So that's how we're going to obviously change how this all works, essentially, how much amperage to apply to the drive unit. The EV can control like maximum amperage, and it'll also control how much regeneration braking is coming from this going back to the batteries. So obviously that's a good thing. What else are we missing on here? Oh yeah, so we also have the charger and the DC to DC converter. I mean, these guys are pretty straightforward. They don't go through the contactor. They come straight from the always charged or always hot side of the batteries. So charger and DC to DC converter, positive there, and same thing there. So again, this I ran out of room here. This will come over to our 12 volt battery that runs everything else in the car, your lights, power windows, ignition, not ignition, but the anything that would normally be on when you turn the key on in the on position. And then of course the charger, that will be, the plan is to be just a 6.6 kilowatt per hour charger. So some quick math here, so it'd take times 3, 6, about 6 hours to full charge if this thing was completely dead. I don't plan on taking this on any long trips where I would need to get to a certain distance or anything along those lines. So the time to charge doesn't really matter a whole lot. 6.6 kilowatt hours in most, like the Chevy Volt, for instance, will get you like 15 miles worth of charge in 1 hour. And I think this car is going to be a little bit better simply because it's a whole lot lighter. It's around, should be around 1,300 or 1,400 pounds lighter than the Chevy Volt is. So I think that's what I've got so far. That's where we're at on this. I think I've covered everything that I have got in, everything that's either on the way or is kind of a set in stone kind of thing. Couple of real quick, nice thing. We got the Viper paid for, so I turned right around and sent all that money to Factory 5. So even though they don't like need the entire full amount until 10 days prior to delivery, delivery date's technically April 27th, so the 17th. I've got that paid off. So now basically I've got everything I need to continue on kind of this journey. The only other kind of expensive things, weird stuff that I'm just not sure of, the axles, some custom work there, obviously, as well as the let's see, like paint job and body work will be a kind of a bigger ticket item, and wiring. A lot of this stuff, best I can tell, is going to require like double-aught or 2/0 gauge wiring to be able to handle the capacity, and I'm kind of a bigger is better to a certain extent kind of thing, so I may even go heavier duty than that. We'll see what's available when I get to that point. I think that's all I got for now. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to me rant about this. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, message me. If you like what you think's going on here, just subscribe, click the bell notification. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm starting to work on those. I've never really used them before, but at Electric GTM, and that hashtag Electric GTM also seems to work on Facebook too. Yeah, that's where I'm at for now. The dog is going crazy chasing a bug of some sorts around the garage. Anyways, have a good one, and hope you learned something.